Well, good afternoon, Henry.
How's it going, James?
Very well, very well. It's a great pleasure to see you. It's been a while, and we're really looking forward to your insights. I'm going to introduce you as Henry Gordon Smith, as the founder and CEO of Agritecture, which I'm sure you'll explain well. And your topic is a sustainability expert's entrepreneurial journey. So I hand it over to you, and we much look forward to hearing your views.
Great. Thank you so much. And it's great to be here again. What a great event. And I'm privileged to be able to speak with you today. So I'm Henry. You can find my email here if you have any questions, you want to follow up with me. Or if you want to follow my global journey around the world, I'm a nomad. I live out of a suitcase. You can follow me on Instagram at @theagritech. That's also the same as my Twitter. My Instagram is where I feature a lot of my travel and my trips. And so, yeah, who am I? Well, I'm a global ag tech speaker. I mean, I don't just speak about it. I'm actually a consultant. So I'm asked to speak about the topic because I'm independent of sort of promoting one way of doing agriculture over the other. And I can speak about it more broadly, which is very important because we have to understand all of our options to respond to this critical threat of climate change through agriculture. I have my bachelor's degree in political science from the University of British Columbia. I got a certificate in food security and urban agriculture from Ryerson University after that. And then I moved to New York City with big dreams of being an urban farmer. And I had to really struggle for a while to break in New York City. And then I got into Columbia and got my master's of science in sustainability management. Worked in a couple of different companies in aquaculture and aeration until Agritecture sort of began and grew. So that's who I am. And, let me tell you a little bit about my journey. So I grew up in big cities, Hong Kong and Tokyo. I was born in Hong Kong and lived in Tokyo until I was 10. And so I didn't really have a green thumb, but this is sort of at our family house in the Czech Republic, which is where we ended up when I was a teenager. And my parents both knew how to garden, and they would kind of forced me as a teenager to get into it. I'm a little bit older here in this picture, but I wasn't really a big fan of it. But as I started getting older, I started understanding the challenges we face around food security, water scarcity, and various climate change issues that are going to make all of our food more difficult to grow and all the resources that we need to grow them more difficult to access. So I started getting really interested in this idea of urban agriculture, right? I wanted to live in cities. I wanted to make cities greener. And I wanted to understand, how does growing food in the city really work? What are the economics of it? What are the different ways of doing it? And how does it really happen? And so I started a blog called Agritecture. I was maybe 25 at that time. So I was a college student, just finishing up college. And I started a blog to kind of share ideas and the farms I was visiting. And that blog got popular as I started sharing my perspective on urban agriculture. So again, this was back in 2011, and there wasn't a lot known about, in particular, the modern types of urban agriculture, which includes using things like hydroponics, where you grow plants without soil, or vertical farming, where you grow plants actually without sunlight. You grow them indoors in warehouses or basements or containers. And these new technologies were emerging, but there wasn't really a clear understanding of where they fit. And so this idea of growing food indoors, vertical farming, was particularly sexy and appealing to a lot of entrepreneurs, but there was really not a lot of clarity about what you could grow, how much you could grow, how much it cost. And I had already started down this journey of exploring it and sharing on my blog. So I started getting a lot of ability to answer people's questions about it as I was just building up a lot of knowledge. And I'll give you some tips about how to do that as well. So people saw it as very futuristic, something that was excited about, but didn't really know how to accomplish it. The concept wasn't economically viable at the time, and policymakers weren't really taking it seriously back at that time. And so I started this blog again and started pushing this to help showcase those people that were doing this well, and also help to call out those people that weren't doing it well or weren't being honest. And again, this was about a blog. It was really about being creative but conservative. So we tried to push new ideas, push the envelope of what's possible, creative designs, creative ideas, but always balance that with real data or a real event you could find information at, or a real company that was doing this, or a real farm that was successful. And I think that that's a really important part of what Agritecture does, is we try to push the envelope by promoting creativity, promoting exploration, but then always sort of bringing it back a little bit by saying, well, this is what we know works today. So we can still reach there, but have sort of a realistic pathway as opposed to a sort of pie in the sky, so to say. So what is Agritecture? Well, it's pretty obvious. It's agriculture and architecture combined. And why did I choose that name? Well, I think it's because I always wanted to be an architect when I was younger. I loved to design things and I was always drawing things, and I didn't really have the math skills to go into architecture. So I didn't end up doing it, but I always wanted to do it. And I thought I was a pretty good designer. And so when I thought about farming in the city, which is what urban agriculture is, I thought, this can't be done the same way it's done outside of the city, because you have less space, because you have communities to think about more than you do in rural areas. You've got buildings and shading. You've got to make it look interesting. I mean, cities are supposed to be also architecturally beautiful more and more these days. So that's where Agritecture was born. And again, it started as a blog, and then it evolved into a consulting service as people started asking me for more professional advice. I was able to convert my blog into a consulting service, and I recruited a team to do that with me. So here we are now. Our mission has really broadened beyond urban agriculture. Our mission is now to accelerate and empower the transition to smarter and more resilient agriculture. And smarter and more resilient agriculture means what? Well, it's really tech-enabled agriculture. It's resilient to climate change and shocks in the system. So it tends to mean controlled environment agriculture, which is greenhouses and vertical farms, urban agriculture, which is closer to the customer and in the city, and also local agriculture, but also other methods like regenerative, organic, anything that's really pushing sustainability and resilience and has a bit of a tech focus is what Agritecture is really, really good at. And our vision is that really agriculture moves from being a very low margin business to something that is profitable, economically viable for farmers, for new entrants as well. It needs to be resilient to the changes in the climate. It's powered by data, something that we're really passionate about at Agritecture. Is how data can help us adapt to climate change in the future. We want to be part of that transition. So let's just tell you a little bit more about my journey. So I started the blog in 2011. It wasn't until 2014 that we got our first client. And again, it wasn't just me. By the time this point came around, I had to hire some other really smart people to join me. I couldn't do this on my own. But we really became the first global ag tech, like urban ag tech consulting firm. The first group that was saying, we think urban agriculture has a place and we provide services related to that. And we provide services like market research, farm design, feasibility studies, recruiting, basically getting these farms started. In 2015, we started doing workshops really all around the country in the US, but also internationally, and bringing together people. And we sort of built up dream teams to plan farms, really, really fun workshops. We're actually launching these online now. If you look at design.agritecture.com and keep an eye on that, we're launching these workshops online and also some in person. We're restarting them post-COVID. In 2016, we helped the world's first vertical farming accelerator get started. This was Square Roots, which was actually Kimball Musk, Elon Musk's brother, his business. We were very honored to work on that project in our backyard, basically in Brooklyn, New York, where we started. 2017, we designed Manhattan's first vertical farm with the incredible CEO, Rob Lang. 2018, we built a co-working lab, a space where people could come and gather. Imagine like a WeWork of ag tech, again, to build our community and connect with them in person and to accelerate more companies. We designed a hardware accelerator in New York as well. And in 2020 here, we launched Agritecture Designer, which is the world's first farm planning software. So we've moved from a blog to a consultancy with some events in there, right? But that's kind of more like the blog too, like it's knowledge sharing. And then now we have a software. So there's three parts to our business. It's our blog, it's our consultancy, and it's our software. So just to show you how an evolution, over almost 10 years can really, what can happen in that time. And I can answer questions about why we do that. So this is just a little bit about, I guess, our team. This is Yara, our director of operations. And she's in a greenhouse that we operated for one of our clients in New York, a 10,000 square foot rooftop greenhouse in Bronx, New York, providing fresh greets to the community, but also selling to restaurants and retailers. These pictures over here, this one on the top is me in Belgium. I spend a lot of time visiting farms still. I feature them on my Instagram. I have a whole series of 22 different farm tours now on Instagram, and I visit them and I try to share knowledge about what they're doing. It's a great way for me to connect with potential clients, also help share knowledge that I'm learning from international travel and my experience, and just sort of bring community together. The one in the middle is my team in our New York office. And this is us talking a lot about our software and starting to get it planned before it launched. And then that last one there is, again, me on another business trip. I think that one's in the Netherlands as well. So I spend a lot of time traveling around. And thanks for the question on African slums. We can get into that in a moment. This is our impact to date. So I'm pretty humbled by this. I think we're actually at 200 now. So we really have a really global, expertise, not a lot in South America. For some reason, we don't get a lot of requests from there. But if you want to reach out to us, también hablamos español on Agritecture. And also Africa, we're trying to get started and starting to do a little more projects there. As you can see, the Middle East, where I spend a lot of time, is getting very popular. And that's because they have low food security, right? They import a lot of food. They don't have a lot of arable land. They need to grow things hydroponically in many cases. So it's exciting. I certainly love having a global company, and it's exactly what I wanted to do. And I think it's been great to find a services approach where I get to work in markets. Me and my dad, with our harvest at our garden, so I still maintain the garden with my parents a little bit. My dad really is the super gardener, and I get to visit him, and we get to share that abundance. So again, trying to keep my work as well as part of my lifestyle. This is just a picture of Farm 1, so you can see what it looks like, the work we actually do. So this is in a basement in Manhattan, the only vertical farm, or the first vertical farm that's commercial. It's probably about 1,200 square feet, this room, so it's multiple racks like this, and they're growing rare herbs and flowers and different flavorful plants for Michelin star restaurants mostly, and also delivery to people's homes. So you can sort of get a reusable box that comes to your home, then recycle it. And again, this is so much credit goes to Rob, who's the visionary of this business. Our job at Agritecture is just to fill in the gaps with data and recommendations on technology and how to plan the economics of your farm and launch them properly. And this is Sky Vegetables, that greenhouse that I mentioned before in the Bronx. And it's a really cool one because, again, it's on an affordable housing building in the Bronx. And this just shows you, like, this is urban agriculture, right? Because this is us bringing it into the building. And because it's a greenhouse, it can grow year round, just like the vertical farm can, but it has a little bit lower energy demand because it doesn't have those lights. But anyway, this is a sort of just to give you an idea of our work. And we focus a lot on entrepreneurs, right? And I think the entrepreneurs we work with at Agritecture that are some of our clients are also representative of, the entrepreneurship journey in general. But a big question for the entrepreneurs that we work with are, what's the market? Who's going to pay for your food? Who's going to pay for the product you're going to be growing? I think a lot of us have great ideas for businesses and things we want to do, but you really can't spend too much time thinking about who's your customer, who's your market, how much are they willing to pay, what's their life like, what do they want, what are their hopes and dreams. So to focus a lot on that. New farmers struggle to get investment even more than I would say other startups, because there's a lot of lack of clarity about agriculture as profitable or these new technologies. Just to choose the right location. How do you find space in the city? Many cities don't even have zoning for agriculture. So it takes a lot longer to convince them to be able to build a farm and allow it. And then technology, you have to make, some certain technology choices. So Agritecture helps all across this, right? So the message here is like, the message to you, if you're a young entrepreneur, is you have to find a gap in the market and fill it better than anyone else, which is what we've done in Agritecture, right? We found a gap in knowledge. We filled that with the blog that helped us understand our customer really well, understand the market. Then we started providing consulting services to them based on their demand. And so we've been able to fill that gap. And I think there's some similarities to any business you're starting, is just finding that gap and filling it. And we've now built out a range of services to solve these key problems that urban agriculture entrepreneurs face. And it's a real problem, right? Because this is data from our surveys and our censuses that we do every year to understand. And you can see that most of the people involved in this sector, CEA, which is controlled environment agriculture, which includes greenhouses and vertical farms, and is the really popular way of doing urban ag right now. And it's getting a lot of money, a lot of interest. Most of them, the biggest percentage of them have no experience, 49%. And I think it's more than that in many cases. And if we look here, 68% of our respondents on our software, 68% of them are at the beginner or light level of experience. So they really don't understand, how do you manage these farms properly? How do you grow the crops, the technologies? They're just getting started. And so we help them get through all those challenges. We help them figure it out. And our software, again, this is another important thing to mention, like as an entrepreneur, you have to decide what kind of business you want to run. For me, I like the services business. I like hearing people's challenges and solving them. So I think it's a really good place for me to be a consultant. And I've recruited a team that's also very good at that. But when it comes to raising money, it was difficult for us as a consulting firm to raise money because investors don't think consulting firms are scalable. So even if you're profitable, you might not be able to raise money from investors unless you're doing something that's very like tech or consider that's going to blow up, expand 10 times more. So we decided to reinvest our profits in building a software. And we also think this is very important as part of our mission because we're building a legacy where the database of models for growing food in the city and near the city and in resilient ways is all living now agriculture designer. And it's something for the world forever that they can benefit from. So our software lets you basically plan farms. You can build a model of your farm from an economic perspective. You can choose your crops, you can create financial plans, and you can compare those to make sure you have the best option ahead of you. It's kind of what it looks like. You sort of get a report at the end about what your payback is, what your CapEx is, what crops you're growing, and main economic metrics. It begins with a simple questionnaire that anybody can answer for free as well. And these are some of the features that you get on the paid version. So these are all features that you can do on the paid version of the software. Here's a couple more snapshots of it. We've got online classes as well as part of it. And we created this for those people that, consulting is kind of expensive for some people. It's for people who really want high touch, who want to move very fast and want the best capabilities, the best knowledge. But agriculture designer is like dramatically cheaper than the consulting. It just means you have to spend your time versus our time. So it's an interesting approach because it gives our community options. If they want to go for a more premium option or a more affordable option, they can choose what's right for them. And at Agritecture, we really benefit either way because the software is very scalable. We make money off that, and then we make money off the services if they want to go that route. And we like giving them those choices. Again, this is just more on the online classes, which we sell for $99 as a standalone. And this is something that if you go through this class, you're going to be so well prepared and know all the best practices that you're going to save tons of money relative to going and learning it out on your own. Again, this is my 10 years of experience and my team's combined 42 years of experience in one class. And then again, here's more of what it looks like when you're in the software and you've got your different models of your farms, and you can then compare them to each other and look at them and look at the whole report, the number of jobs, the number of people you're going to feed, really trying to disrupt and provide this knowledge. We also launched some benefits with partners. So after our software, you can request, you can send your plan to different partners and get financing or equipment and discounts. You can check that out yourself. But I just want to sort of wrap up here with just some tips for you as entrepreneurs or young entrepreneurs. The first three things are the things that I think are the most important that I focused on and what made me successful and what I try to continue to do and advise people on. Number one, you have to build an archive. Whatever you're interested in, you should be gathering that information and storing it so it's easily accessible so that when you're speaking about it or when you're trying to make a decision about something, you can pull from it very easily. So in the early days while I was blogging, I was also building an archive. How much money did the farm raise? What are they growing? How big are they? How many employees do they have? So I had that information that became a really good asset for me to get educated. I wasn't just seeing things and learning and having a good time. I was storing that knowledge in my archive. Number two, hands-on experience. I'm not a farmer. So how am I supposed to work with farmers if they don't believe me, if they don't trust me? So I had to sort of humble myself, and I volunteered at a number of different greenhouses and community gardens just to make sure I understood how it worked and understood their perspective and could speak their language a little bit more. And I think no matter what you want to get into, there's nothing that beats hands-on experience. And if you can find a way to volunteer and just get that experience above all, or a lightly paid internship, ideally, then it's hugely valuable for you to know what you want to do and what you're good at. And also just, again, build respect in the industry you're trying to get into. Number three is really important. Networking, of course, is critical to growing any business, growing your brand, getting a job, but definitely in the context of entrepreneurship, you have to be able to network. So I think a lot of people go around and they network with me and they say, oh, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? Can you introduce me to so-and-so? And I get all these questions. People just ask me for help, and I think instead you should focus on giving first, right? So I think what makes me a successful networker is I always think about what I can give somebody first, not what I'm trying to ask from them. And I begin the relationship with giving first, knowing that in the future, I may need something from them. Now, if I'm giving first, it really puts me in a position of confidence. I'm in control in that situation. They're not in control, right? I'm the one who's deciding what I'm giving. It also puts me in a place of I'm not afraid in the same way that I would be if I was asking for something. And it also puts me in a place where, again, I can be memorable, which leads into number 4. You need to build a brand. You need to build something that people remember about you. And you need to stay consistent with it. I think too many people are like, oh, I want to be like that. I want to be like this. And they try different things. You can try different things, but you need to stick to it for a period of time to see if it really works. So think about your brand. Oh, I'm Henry. I'm an urban agriculture blogger, right? I'm on a mission to share as much knowledge about urban agriculture as possible, which is what I was at the beginning. Just repeat that message over and over again and see how it sticks. And if people are introducing you to other people under that brand, then you know it's working because you know that they remembered what you told them and they're willing to recommend you and you've built some legitimacy. So again, if you want to learn more about Agritecture, we're very easy to find across social media at Agritecture, on our website, agritecture.com. Our software can be linked there too. You just click on software on the top there, or you can contact me directly through LinkedIn or on Instagram. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about the entrepreneurship journey. And that's my presentation for today.
Thank you so much, Henry. I'm going to ask you just a couple of quick questions because this whole thing is growing more and more given the issues of sustainability and all that. Just to understand, in what part of the world is it growing the most? Who and where are showing the most interest in this?
Yeah, I think the Middle East is probably contributing the most overall dollars to this, I would say. But I would say also Singapore, which is food insecurity, imports a lot of food, is putting a lot of money into this. When I say the Middle East, it's mostly the GCC countries. They're trying to diversify their economies and have growing populations and very little access to fresh foods. We also see this in Asia a lot more. We see it across Vietnam, a lot of production in greenhouses as well that's growing there, and across China, a lot of growth as well. The most well-funded companies are in the US, which is interesting, right? And we're seeing like a lot of big farms grow in the US and a lot of big valuations as well in the US.
Right. And what are the arguments that hold people back when you talk to them? What is it that they don't like about this? What are the obstacles that people have that could stand in the way?
Well, I think from urban agriculture overall, which includes, low-tech community gardens, simplified, soil-based farms, rooftop farms, all up to the high-tech greenhouse and vertical farms, there's something in common that they get, which is like, oh, you're never going to produce enough to feed everyone. And I think that's just a silly argument. It's not about feeding everyone. It's about just changing the distribution of food production. We produce enough food on Earth to feed every single human being. The sad part of it is that we don't distribute that food properly and that there's inequality in access to that food. So if we grow more food closer to customers, we can actually shift that and disrupt the main issue, which is distribution of food. And there's also ways with low-tech solutions that we can improve access to food. So I think it's not about feeding everyone. And there, by some estimates, you could produce 10% of our fruits and vegetables globally in cities, in urban areas. And on the outskirts of cities, you can get closer to 50 or 70% within 100 kilometers. So it's pretty significant. And if you look at World War II, 40% of US vegetables were grown in victory gardens, in urban farms, 40% of them during the war. So, we have evidence from the past, whether it's the blockade of Cuba, whether it's World War I, World War II, or even the pandemic, of urban farms helping us navigate shocks in the system. And I think that's what people need to remember. It's not just about the business, or it's not just about, the biggest or the scale. It's about resilience.
Yeah. Very interesting. Well, I wish you all the best. I think this is going to play a major role for all sorts of reasons around the world. And I certainly hope that things will go well. There's always resistance to sustainability issues, like people don't like electric cars or things like that. And maybe in sustainable, agriculture like this, there may be some kind of resistance for whatever reason, even political, but it looks really good. And I thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, you too.